How you doing, fam bam? This is Msi here. I want to talk to you about motherboards today, and you're trying to figure out what type of motherboard you want for your PC. If you're trying to figure out if you want Intel or if you want AMD, you might want that AM5 socket, or maybe you prefer LGA 1700. I'm going to go over all these specifications. Excuse the look. I know I'm wolfing, and that's something I'm going to take care of. It's been really crazy for me. But anyway, to get to the point, we want to talk about these motherboards. The first one I do want to mention with these specifications is Intel's Z790. I will bring up the chip diagram so you can take a look and get an idea of what it does feature. But I will go over some of the features right now, and these are some of the features you may be looking for. And we will discuss everything over, whether if you're looking to game or content create. These are very important factors that you have to consider, especially if you're trying to purchase either motherboard, especially if you're going to invest in building a brand new PC soon. It does feature one X16 for PCI Express 5.0, and it will also have one X4 for PCI Express 4.0 for those NVMe speeds that you're looking for if you're looking for PCI Express 4.0. Or you have the option. This is really important to know because not everybody knows when they purchase a Z790, it will decide to this. This will be a deciding factor for many people, especially if you're trying to get NVMe PCI Express 5.0. And this is important to know because if you do get a graphics card, say sometime in the future, but currently no graphics cards have it right now, is that PCI Express 5.0 graphics cards will be X16. If you do manage to get one, which we don't have currently today, if you get a 7900 XTX and you put it into PCI Express 5.0 X16 or a NVIDIA RTX 4090, they both will have X16 4.0 speeds. If you know about chipsets, if you know about motherboards, it will split the power. So if you have a NVMe PCI Express 5.0 when it does get released, if you notice on the chipset diagram here, it will also split the power of the PCI Express 5.0. It will actually be 2x8 into PCI Express 5.0. Even though it does state that the PCI Express is X16 5.0, even if you put a PCI Express 4.0 graphics card in there, it will still split the power regardless if you do have that in there. And more than likely, you won't notice it because when you do use PCI Express 5.0, it will split it into half, which is practically PCI Express 4.0, 16 gigabits per second. It will also do the same when it comes to your NVMe speeds. So if you do decide to get a PCI Express 5.0 NVMe and install it, you will still see the speed from NVMe PCI Express 5.0. You just won't see the performance from the graphics card, but then again, it doesn't really matter. But that's not the case in point. That's just one of the things I do have to bring up. When you do get a Z790 motherboard, it does have Intel's DDR5 4800 megatransfers per second or 5200 megatransfers per second, which is the DDR5 speed. You will also have another PCI Express X16 slot. More than likely, it will just be PCI Express 4.0. As total, you will get 20x PCI Express 4.0. So it will split into X16, and then you will have another one, which will be split to X4, which will be also for NVMe speeds, or even X1, which could be something to use, such as expansion cards that you will use for your PC. It will also have 2.5 gigabits. For the motherboard, it will have Bluetooth, it will have Wi-Fi. Those are a lot of Intel's main features when it comes to it, which will be Intel's Wi-Fi 6E. Same thing with Bluetooth 5.3. You will also have Intel's rapid storage technology, and same with the audio media drivers, which is technically just Realtek media, which you typically see on any build. What's also important to keep in mind that it will also feature 5x USB 3.2 Gen 2, which is up to 20 gigabits per second. It will also feature up to 10 USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, which is up to 10 gigabits per second. So this is what Z790 does feature. It does also feature a socket 1700 which is also compatible with the 12th generation and the 13th generation, which is Alder Lake, and it does feature Raptor Lake as well. This is a great motherboard for specification wise. So this is a generalization and specification of what Z790 does feature. We will go over to see which features are actually better compared to the X670E. So enough about the Z790. Let's talk about AMD's X670E. Why does it shine? What does it really feature? It does feature AM5, which is AMD's new Zen 4 processors, which almost everybody has been looking forward to. It does also feature LGA 1718, so it is unlike the prior generations when it was the Zen 3 processors, where the pins were actually on the processors itself. It is similar to Intel's design, where the pins are actually on the motherboard. Now, the biggest difference between the X670E, which you should really notice, is that it does have 28x PCI Express 5.0, which is a really nice feature considering you can have X16 PCI Express 5.0, and then the other X8, which is more likely going to be split in two from X4 for NVMe storage drivers, which is great if you do want to install two NVMe's, which are PCI Express 5.0. Now, the 4X downlink does go to 1X USB 2.0, which is just the basic 480 megabit connection. Boo, we don't really like that. Who uses USB 2.0 anymore? But it doesn't really matter if you're plugging a keyboard in there or if you're plugging a mouse in there, something that is more of a general PMP driver, which doesn't really matter about how quick it is. Who cares if you plug in your keyboard to USB 3.2 Gen 2? Is it really going to make a difference? No. Now, the motherboard features a PCI Express 2X USB 3.2 version 2, which is also USB 20 gigabit connection, which is also an important feature if you're looking for those faster USB speeds. If you like to upload a lot of media, just like me, if you like to upload a lot of content, or if you do a lot of photo work, video work, or if you do a lot of graphic design, this is a great option for you. You want to make sure that you have that type of connection. Or you have the option of one USB 3.2 version 2 and a USB 3.2 Gen 1 port. Or you can have up to 4 USB 3.1, which is only 10 gigabits of speed. It will naturally just offer 8x USB 3.2. It will give up to 12x USB 2.0 ports. The AMD upstream is X670E, can feature LAN, Wi-Fi, Ethernet, NVMe, CEM slots, etc. Now, for AMD's downstream, you do have an option. You can pick one of these options. You don't really pick one of the options. It's going to be the manufacturers that do create these motherboards option, but make sure you look it over if this is what you're looking for. It may be important to you, especially if you are into gaming or content creation. These are some important features to consider, which is the 8x PCI Express 3.0, 8 gigabits with 2x SATA 6 gigabits per second ports. The next option is the 4x PCI Express 3.0, 8 gigabits per second with 4 SATA 6 gigabits per second. And the next option is the 2x PCI Express 3.0 with 6x SATA 6 gigabits per second. This isn't going to be really a talk between processors, but I do have to go over the general idea of both of them. You do have the 7950X and you do have Intel's 13900K. They're both excellent processors. We are in a great processor market because either one these are great competition with each other. Both of them have their own advantages and disadvantages. Now, I do gotta say, Intel's 13900K does slightly outperform AMD's 7950X. Now, if you're looking for gaming, Intel's options are great when it comes to the 13100K. You had the 13400K, 13600K. All these chipsets, all these processors are great when it comes to gaming. Intel has always generally been better when it comes to single core processing, which is better for a lot of games. The multi-core processing hasn't been so great on their side when it comes to that because they focus a lot on E cores and P cores. Now, when it comes to AMD, when it comes to their processors, they aren't as great when it comes to single core processing, but they are excellent when it comes to multi-core processing. So what does this really mean for you? Depending on the type of game it is, if it is heavy and intense, there's a lot of games that are becoming that way where they require multi-core processing, which will let AMD excel at. But when it comes to single core processing, which is a lot of the games out there, I would say like about 90% of the games out there that don't require multi-core processing. Instead, it requires at least single core processing. Intel does exceed in that. Intel's 13th generation, their Raptor Lake or Alder Lake, does perform really well when it comes to gaming. So if you're looking to build a PC strictly based off of gaming, this is a great option for you. But there are some limitations when it does come to that. And what I mean by limitations, is it really and truly future proof? Is it something that you really need? Because by the time PCI Express 5.0 does get released, which is more likely going to be the next generation of GPUs, it's not going to be NVIDIA's 40 series. I don't even think it's going to be any of their 40 series Ti's. It's going to end up being more than likely on the 50 series when it does get released. And for AMD, it will be the 8000 series when it comes to their Radeon cards, where you will see PCI Express 5.0. Now, that depends if it really matters to you. Just as I mentioned earlier when we went over their chipset diagram, if you put anything into the GPU slot, regardless if it's 4.0 or 5.0, it will reduce the speed of PCI Express 5.0, whether you like it or not. It's not a choice. It doesn't matter if you put 4.0 or 5.0. So if that is your main concern, if you want X16 PCI Express 5.0 and that's really important to you, Z790, you don't mind it splitting the lanes down to X8 and X8, then by all means you can purchase the Z790. Will this affect you as a gamer? No. You'll be fine. You'll be great, actually. You'll still game. You'll still play all the games that you want and will face zero issues. And you can even perform better than the X670E. It doesn't really matter. You still can exceed because what really matters is the processor and the chipset, the motherboard that you do have. Now, the DDR5, their mega transfers are much quicker than AMD's currently. And I'll get to that in a little bit when I do explain AMD's side. Now, to skip the whole gaming section of it, now if you want to stick around because you're more of a content creator or a graphic designer, or if you use it more for architecture use or whatever your use is other than gaming, then you might find yourself limited when it comes to those type of speeds. And it won't be now, but it will be soon when you do discover that. You're going to discover, especially if you're going to do a lot of video decoding or encoding, not to say that Intel's processor is great. It's going to affect you when it comes to your storage drivers. You're going to notice a lot more performance, and then you don't want to really experience any of the bottlenecking when it comes to PC peripherals and components when you do work with this motherboard. So let's go over the AMD side of things. If you're just thinking about the X670E, that's great. It's a great motherboard. Windows is a little bit unfriendly when it comes to the X670E. I don't care what anybody says. AMD has always been kind of the black sheep when it comes to Windows. It's always been a little bit troublesome. The Q codes have been a little bit more troublesome compared to the Intel side of motherboards. So that might be a factor to you. If that really matters, if you are looking for more performance and you're looking for more better workflow. So just keep that in mind, not to say that any motherboard is perfect. Something that I do have to bring up is it is a lot more superior when it comes to PCI Express 5.0. They have more lanes available. Zen 4 has the power to do that. The temperatures are a bit higher than Intel's. It does require a little bit more power. You have 170 watts of power going through AMD side when it comes to their processors. I know some of you are probably thinking, what about the AMD 7000 3D chips that will be released? And that's a great question. that is why the X670E is a great viable option if you're thinking about purchasing that motherboard, because you do have the option to upgrade processors. The 7000X series just recently got released. That was released in October of 2022. Pretty soon, we're going to see the release of 7000 3D processor chips, which is also a great update. You will have the 3D V cache that everybody's looking forward to, which is you have nearly doubled the L3 cache when it comes to their processors, which will increase your gaming performance. If you get a 7800 X3D, you will notice a significant increase when it comes to gaming. It is powered a whole lot less at 120 watts. So that is a great option if you're looking for the game inside. And on top of that, it is future-proof. So we might even see AMD's 8000 series chipsets into these motherboards. All you have to do is upgrade the BIOS. Intel kind of tried to do a similar option when it came to the motherboards, when it came to their Z690s and Z790s, as there was very little differences. If you want to check that out, make sure you check out the card above and as I explain it in there. Having the AMD side of their motherboard, it is a little bit more future-proof. I did fail to mention the speeds which are required for this motherboard if you want to have AMD's Expo and its magical number for this chipset, 6000 megahertz. Now, comparatively, you do have Expo and you do have XMP. Expo is a bit newer technology compared to XMP, and it is supposed to be more performance worthy. It is more overclockable than AMD's processor, which you do have limited capacities when it does come to overclocking. The AMD 7000 X3D processors have yet been released, but unlocking capabilities say yes, so we don't know exactly what the full potential of their processors. Do have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to the X670E, but there are some negative parts about that. Sure, you have PCI Express 5.0, you can get those speeds, you do have a little bit more options, but the USB options aren't as much compared to Intel's when you do have Thunderbolt 4 versus USB 4.0. Practically almost the same idea, but Thunderbolt is obviously a much more superior USB connection when it comes to media. If you're looking to future-proof, X670E is definitely the way to go, because the Z790 is going to be irrelevant within a year. They did decide to delay their processor from Meteor Lake to 2024, which will extend the life of the Z790. Now, the pricing, originally AMD was a bit higher than Intel. They both are tight when it comes to competition. When the 7950X was first released, it was $699.99 USD. You can purchase that same processor for $589.99. Intel's 13900K, you can purchase that processor for about $595 USD. I'll go over the Asus ROG Hero Crosshair, which is the X670E board. You can currently pick that up for $669.99 versus the Z790 Hero Maximus, which you can pick up for $629.99. Now, the other manufacturers such as MSi and Gigabyte, there is very little differences. For Gigabyte's Aorus Master, you can pick that up. The X670E and the Z790 variants are both the same price. Same with MSi's Meg Ace motherboards with the Z790 and the X670E. For the Z790, the processor runs less hot, which is better because it keeps cooler because of that reason. Another great thing about the Z790 is that it does have more options when it comes to media capabilities, when it comes to USB connections. When you have USB 3.2 Gen 2, you have multiple connections of that, plus you got Thunderbolt. But the negative parts about the Z790 motherboard is that you have to split the PCI Express 5.0 speeds because it does not have the true capability of PCI Express 5.0. Not to say that you can use the full X16, but it will have to split if you end up using up the X16 for your graphics card and then your NVMe PCI Express 5.0. You will notice a considerable difference between the two. Another problem with the Z790 is that the motherboard will become outdated pretty quickly. Within 2024, it will not be upgradable as much as it won't have the flexibility as the X670E. For the X670E, you have the advantages of PCI Express 5.0, you have the true capabilities. Great aspect of the Z790, the RAM runs a lot more quicker and it will be smoother, and it does use XMP. Now for the X670E, we will have to see over time. We can't just put our finger quite on it. It does use a newer technology, which is nice. The processor isn't as overclockable compared to Intel, but it does have overclocking abilities. But I can't say that until the 3D V cache does get released for AMD's side. The pricing has become a little bit more even. Originally, that was a negative side of AMD's chipsets, that they are usually more expensive. Q codes are typically more faulty when it comes to AMD's chipsets, and Windows is a bit unfriendly when it comes to AMD. It is a great board for flexibility when it comes to upgrade and many options. Regardless if you're a gamer or content creator, it is a great PC for either use. Intel, I'd say, is a great machine. It does perform better, more on to the gaming side. It does also work great if you work on a lot of photos, such as Lightroom or Photoshop, but it does not compare when it comes to video encoding and decoding compared to AMD's side. I hope you found this content very useful. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you know anybody who is looking to purchase any of these motherboards, make sure you share this video with them. Also, if you're not part of the big one of Fan Bam, make sure you go down and hit the subscribe button for more, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. And for all the newest updates, make sure you follow my Twitter handle right here, as it is the same as my TikTok and IG as well. So Fan Bam guys, let me know if I missed anything. I tried to go over as much as I could off the top of my head, and they are both great options, and I hope this covered everything that you were looking for. If you have any questions at all, feel free to ask in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Chris Msi signing out.